Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sales Made Simple workshop. This is your host, Joshua Gillow, and today we're going to talk about the top 5 customer red flags to watch for in outdoor living design build sales. Now, wouldn't it be great if we all had a crystal ball and we knew each time a client called in whether they're going to be a huge waste of our time or whether they're going to be a great value to our company and to be able to allow us to create a win-win scenario with them where we can make some money and they can get a great result, right? That's always what we're looking for. But, there's a couple of clients out there you see a year that come through your doors that, that you can just tell something's not quite right. And there's something about the way that they act or what they say or what they don't say that brings you to this realization that there might be something lurking in the distance. Well, today, I'm going to teach you those 5 customer red flags that you need to be watching out for during your sales process. We're going to teach you why it's a red flag and what to do about it. So guys, thanks for joining me today. First one is going to be unclear or constantly changing scope of work. So I'm sure we've all had those clients before, and why that's a red flag, and they continue to change things. If a customer has a difficulty clearly articulating their needs or frequently changing their expectations, man, those are a pain in the neck to deal with. Every time you think that you have something lined up, like I have this idea, they're going to love it. They've told me that they're looking for this. I've asked them great questions. We're really starting to go on a nice direction here. We have clarity of where we're trying to go. And the next thing you know, they keep changing their minds or can't make a decision at all. Man, if that client becomes an actual paying client for you, has a lot of potential to lead to cost overruns, delays, and misunderstandings during the project, where they thought they were getting one thing and they got something very different because they couldn't make up their mind. So if you hear them changing or constantly adjusting or very unclear of what they're trying to accomplish, it's a matter of slowing things down and going back to the very basics and figuring out why they're doing the project. What is their ultimate goal at the end? What are the feelings they're looking for? What do they want, need, and desire for the space to do in order for them to lead a better life? So we have to go back to the beginning at times. And here's what you got to watch out for. You got to look out for vague descriptions of the project, frequently revising the plans, or asking for multiple redesigns or revisions without any clear reason. I don't know, like it just doesn't hit yet. Can you do it again? Can you change this? Can you move this? Without having any idea of why. So if you start to hear a client go in that direction, there's a high probability that's going to be a red flag, and that may come up and bite you in the butt later. The second one I'm going to share with you is unrealistic budget expectations. So here's why that's a red flag. I think that's pretty obvious, but here's why. Customers who are significantly out of touch with the true cost of a project or attempt to push for much, much more than their budget allows are likely to push for cheaper solutions, which may compromise quality. This can lead to conflicts down the road as costs rise, and they may become dissatisfied with the realization that their budget won't meet their desired outcome. Think about that. They think they can get a lot more inside their budget than they really truly can. And if they haven't been in touch with the world that we live in now and see that prices have almost doubled in the last 5 years, they are going to have a really hard time swallowing the pill of the truth. So sometimes those clients need to be sat down and go through a process to make sure we can bring out budget in them. And if the budget works for them, that's great. But if their budgets don't work for them and you find that out in your discovery process, it's okay to let them go. It's okay to suggest somebody else who might be more in line with what they're looking to do for the budget that they have. Not every client is a good client. So that's why they're a red flag. Now, what to watch out for? Now, a budget that doesn't align with scope, it really has a major problem later in the overall project, right? You're going to have that come up and kick you in the butt. If you aren't asking about budget throughout your process, you are just waiting for that time bomb to go off. You're just waiting way too late after you put all this work and all the hours in the design and the estimating the entire project, all to find out later that they don't have the budget. So I plead with you listeners out there, if you don't like talking about budget, there are ways to learn how to do that don't feel slimy, that make both you and your client feel good at the end, and helps you with clarifying the direction in which you're going to take this project. Because if you don't have budget by the end of your discovery call, you are basically shutting your eyes, putting a blindfold on, and trying to hit a target that you have no idea where it is. You're just shooting into the distance, hoping like heck you hit paper. And that's not the best way and the most efficient way in order to do that. So having that conversation, even if it does feel like there is some kind of oddness or weirdness to it, it is not as difficult as you think. It is a very step-by-step, simple process that you can both feel good about. Because if you're watching out for your client and they have reluctance to increase their budget even after discussing costs, or and they have a desire for high-end features without the flexibility of their budget rising. Another example would be they want a champagne design for a beer budget. This is a major red flag. So it doesn't mean your price is too high. It doesn't mean that your systems are broken. All it means is that the client's expectations and your actualization of that expectation is not aligned. There's no way you can build a $20,000 project for $10,000. That just doesn't work. And they don't know that. It's our job to guide them in that process, to make sure they understand what their money can truly buy them. The next red flag is a reluctance to sign a contract or to commit. And here's why that's a red flag. Customers who hesitate to sign agreements or want to avoid formal contracts altogether may not be fully committed to the project or could be trying to avoid obligations. This can lead to a legal or financial issue or may indicate a lack of trust in your process, which can create friction throughout the process and throughout the project itself. So if you're having a client who won't sign your contract or won't sign your terms and conditions or won't sign your proposals, that's a major problem. If that client is not looking to sign a piece of paper that sets an expectation for them, for you, to make sure you can create a win-win environment, then this is considered a major red flag. If you get a contract back that is redlined, that they're scribing out certain parts or striking out certain parts of your contract that they don't agree with, that is also a red flag. Those clients tend to be major PIAs, and you are going to find major other problems, high probability of major problems later in your project process with them. So if they're trying to dictate to you what should or should not be included in your contracts, which you've had laid out with a lawyer that you know are legally binding and that are, in coordination with your state law, then you have a bigger problem. That client doesn't feel like they should play by the rules. And in fact, there could be a high probability that you will somehow get hooked later for something you don't want to be hooked for, or in some way that they'll have the upper hand and be able to take you later for money. So if they are looking to strike your contract or they hesitate to sign agreements, anything like that, that's a big red flag. So here's what you need to look out for. So delays in contract signing. Requests to start work without formal agreement. Like, yeah, just go ahead, start this project. No big deal. We'll get those agreements signed tomorrow. Not a problem. Or next week. When my husband's home, I'll have him sign them. But you can get started today. Those are the things you got to watch out for. Anytime they try to avoid signing anything that has clear terms and conditions, that is a major red flag. So the next red flag to watch for is a decision maker is never available. So typically when we're selling higher ticket, let's say $25,000, $50,000 and more for these outdoor living projects, it's a team sport. Let's put it that way. This is a red flag because the larger ticket projects are commonly decided by both decision makers, assuming there's two decision makers in the house, not just one. By only speaking with one of those decision makers, you only have half the story and only can cater to half that decision maker duo's needs. If they claim to know what the other one wants. Think about it. If your client says, yeah, I take care of everything. He or she is never available. They're busy and I take care of everything. They've given me the reins for this project. Not a big deal. And while I understand that, and I understand that a lot of our clients are very successful and busy people, I ask the listeners out there, specifically the married ones out there, how many times in your marriage have you made decisions that are $25,000, $50,000, or $100,000 plus and decided to just kind of do that off the hip, something that's going to affect your home, your family, and you're going to just do that all yourself and never have your wife or husband involved in any of the decision making in that process? Now, if any listeners are out there thinking like, yeah, that's me all the time, I always make all the decisions for the house, well, then you are definitely in the minority. A majority of our clients, if not 99% or close to 100% of those clients, are going to want to have both husband and wife or decision makers, both, however that dynamic is, together to decide what is the best path forward. Because think about it, guys. If you're out there and you're trying to do a design just for, or put together a proposal just for one person in that decision-making duo, you only get 50% of the story. You have the other person is just waiting like a ticking time bomb in the background, waiting to explode at the wrong time, because we have this philosophy. It's called the bird dog and the banker. The bird dog is the person who reaches out to you in the decision-making duo. They reach out to you, and they're the ones that have no budget. They're super excited about the project. They want you out tomorrow. They have pinned everything on Pinterest. They have all kinds of pictures, and they've gone to house. They've created idea books. They're just excited about the whole project because they finally have the time to do it, and they finally have been told this is now priority. So they go out and find you, they call you. They're the ones you talk to first. Like, they're the ones that, for the most part, are your bird dogs. Now, you also have in this duo the banker, the more logical one, not the emotionally driven one, but more the logical one, who says, all right, well, honey, go ahead and find somebody to come in and do this project. Once you do, then I'll get involved. And the problem is, guys, they're typically the ones that hold the checkbook. They're typically the more logical ones that have a lot of sway on this project. And if you decide that you just want to go for the quick one person, we call them a one-legger, one decision maker involved, so you can get the proposal out quick because you've got 1,000 to do this week and you just don't have time to wait for the other person and they're never available, you are wasting your time. Because if you don't get them both involved from the very beginning, the chance of you actually bringing this project to life goes way, way down. This is one of the biggest reasons why our industry has a 25 to 30% close rate. That is why, because we go for the easy, low-hanging fruit, the person who calls, the one that's at home, but we don't take the time to make sure that our conversations are directed at both decision makers. Think about how much more, listeners, think about this, how much more effective you could be as a sales guide if you could have both decision makers on calls and when you go to those out to the house. Think about how much more effective you could be by asking great questions to both of them and seeing if they both are aligned. Because if both decision makers are aligned on a goal, your chance of being able to help those people get what they want and create a win-win scenario goes way, way up. Your closing rate goes way, way up. When you have one decision maker that's excited about the project and the other one who's just tired of hearing the other one complain about it, and they said, yeah, honey, go ahead and do this and we'll take a look later, knowing in the back of their mind that they aren't aligned on spending that kind of money on this house, that's where things explode later. Once you hand out your proposal or you finish your design and send it out, the next thing you know, you're getting a false yes, which is, yeah, we'll get back to you. And they never return the call. And you are sitting here wondering, like, what did I do wrong? Why didn't this work? I don't understand it. I don't understand. They told me, yes, I'm going to put them in the schedule. I want to pencil them in. I'll do whatever it takes to get them in to go because I need the work right now. And all they did was lie to you because they didn't want the conflict or the confrontation. So by getting both decision makers in place early as part of the conversation, it is a huge leg up to you to be able to serve them, because now you can hear both sides of the story and you can make sure you're delivering a result that will please them both, that they both need, want, and desire. Now, what do you need to watch for decision maker if you have one that's never available? Well, obviously, one is always busy and they're not part of the design or decision process. The old, oh, don't worry, I take care of this. I'll hand it to him or her after we get into the proposal side. He or she just wants to see numbers, but I'm going to do all the due diligence up front. That's a major problem. If you are taking one-legger calls now or taking those meetings out on site, you are effectively wasting a ton of time. Now, that doesn't mean that every single one of those is going to be bust. I'm not saying it will, but a majority, well over 90%, we have found go bust if both decision makers aren't in the process from the very beginning. Now, the last and certainly not least one here is when your clients want they want labor and materials broken out separately in their proposal. So think about it. Have you ever had a client say that? They're like, hey, you know what? I really want you to take care of this project for us. The design looks great. Let's have you put a proposal together. Then you do that and you hand it over to them. And they're typically broken out maybe by line item, pool, deck, patio, pergola, landscape lighting, whatever it might be, groundwork, whatever it might be. And you have them broken out as separate pricing. And then at the end, it comes to a final total in the price. Now, some clients are going to be thinking, wait a minute here, like, I don't know what they're charging me on labor, so I want to make sure it's broken out. I don't know what they're charging by materials. If they start to ask for you to break out labor and materials, that's a red flag. And here's why. Because larger ticket proposals should include a ton of detail. I mean, if you guys aren't detailing your proposals so they know, so the client and you both know and agree on what is and is not included, that's your first step. Make sure that you are including great detail in that. So you can set an expectation to deliver on a great relationship and not have a bunch of open spaces that your clients have to fill in the blanks, basically saying like 200 square foot patio, 200, lineal feet of this or whatever it might be, right, in your proposal. And then at the very end, just have the number. And then they say, well, okay, great. I see I'm getting a 200 square foot patio with this border. That's it. And as simple as that might be for us to do, the problem is the client doesn't know, does that include fixing the yard on the way out? Does that include what kind of sand is between the joints? What happens to the deck that's there now? All of these kinds of things. So you need to break those pieces out. Detail is your friend here. If you have left it up to your clients to fill in those blanks, you're in trouble because they're not going to fill in the blanks with the same filler as you would want to. Think about it, listeners. If you leave it up for them to interpret, what's the likelihood of your expectation as an expert in this field and their expectation as a novice just trying to figure this out, that they actually align, that what you didn't put in your proposal was common sense enough for them to understand? It isn't. Let's be honest. They don't do it every day like you and I do. Most of these homeowners will do an outdoor living space once or twice in a lifetime. And if you're not giving them the detail that they need to make a great decision, then you're missing out on a great opportunity to build a better relationship and create a win-win environment so that you aren't ripping your hair out halfway through the project when a client goes rogue. So when a potential client asks you to break out labor and materials, it shows that they don't trust you. That's a high probability. It's not a guarantee, but a high probability. And they want to see how much they're paying for each, as if they know better how much you should be billing for labor or know how long a project should take, right? So if you're going to think about the logic here, if you show your clients your proposal and you have it broken out for the patio, and I'm just going to use numbers here, guys, don't slaughter me on this, but it's say it take 500 hours to build this patio and wall, and that's what you figured. You've been tracking your numbers. You know how long it takes. You've been doing all the math. You know this is an honest, futuristic look at what this project is going to take, and you put it in there. And what happens when you show them your labor materials broken out and they look at the labor like 500 hours? Are you crazy? And how much are you billing me per hour? I don't even make that much. So now all of a sudden your client becomes the expert in telling you how much you should be billing and what your hourly rate looks like or should look like, because obviously they know your entire budget of what it takes you to run your company. So all of this, if a client says, hey, I want you to break labor materials out, the answer is simply, we don't do that. If you're looking for that, maybe another company would be able to do that for you. But we put everything together. We're very competitive in what we do. And we've been doing this a long time. We know how long it takes and we know what materials it'll take. And it's that simple. If that does not work for them, they can leave. It's that simple. Don't give them the right to come in and try to nitpick. Because think about it. What's a client going to tell you? Well, 500 hours for that patio, you can do it in 450. Come on, shave some money off that. And those materials, you don't need 10% extra for those pavers. It says, you have 220 square foot in here. You only need 200 for my patio. They're not thinking of the cutting and all the waste that happens on a patio. They don't know anything about that stuff. So why are we letting them into that closet? That's not a place that they belong. So we very clearly, if that's what they want, labor materials broken out, we simply say no. It's that simple. And you're going to see, I've had architects tell me that because that's how they work in their world. We want to see labor and materials broken out separately. And I told them, when we break it out, we simply confuse the client. So we don't do that. We give you a lump sum. If that doesn't work for you, I'm sure there's other contractors out there that'll break it out labor and materials for you. So you know what our next steps are. And it's amazing to see how they shape up and either get on board or they go somewhere else, and that's okay. If they don't trust you now and they want to see it broken out, that's something that if you say yes and you go with the flow, then they are now running you like a rented mule. And now they're going to be out there questioning all the details, driving you absolutely bonkers. And my question to you listeners is, do you want more of that in your life? If the answer is yes, and you like that kind of stuff and you enjoy that in some twisted way, then go for it. But if not, my suggestion for you is to never break them out. Always give them a lump sum at the end. That will certainly help your sanity and keep them on any good client, any client that truly trusts you, knows you're the best fit for them, is not going to question that stuff for you. Now, what to watch out for. So if you hear early on, I'll supply the materials and you can supply the labor, maybe in your initial call or whatever, you better think about what you're going to do there. Because if they're already trying to supply the materials, they're already cutting you out of one profit center, is those materials. And on top of that, if you have them delivering stuff, you've lost full control over the timing of that delivery, the quality of that material, which could cause you major headaches later down the line. Now, I know that this doesn't have to be in every single time, but watch out for it, listeners. Watch out for that. If they say they can supply everything for you, or we're going to want this broken out labor and materials early, simply tell them you don't do it. Or if you know what, you guys own your companies. If you want to do that, go ahead. But don't come back crying in one of the hardscape groups that you got your ass handed to you because a client took advantage of you, because that's what they like to do when it comes to this kind of conversation. So it's very important for you guys to know that you need to be in control of all those materials and of the labor and of the equipment running on that site in order to be most profitable and also deliver the very best result for that client. And that's ultimately what we're looking for. Remember, win-win. When a client wants to come in and hijack that and supply all the materials for you just so you can build them, then they forget the screws, or they forget the boulders, or they forget the wrong size or the wrong color, or they got a better deal somewhere and they only brought half of what you need. Now you're stuck moving all your equipment off site because, well, you can't continue to move until 3 weeks until their guy can bring more boulders to the site. And now you're going around in this circle. So these are all red flags. If you decide you want to move forward with them and you just like all kinds of fun experiences that you have no idea what's coming next, then move forward. But if you're listening through this and you're like, you know what, I've been through these things, I know what a red flag feels like. I hope today it really helps you understand what are the top 5 red flags you need to be watching for as a outdoor living professional in sales. These come on early often, and sometimes they're nestled in the middle, but be watching for them, because identifying these red flags early allows you to address concerns before the project begins, ensuring a much smoother execution and better customer relationship. Because listeners, that's our ultimate goal. If our goal is to turn each client that comes through our doors into a raving fan and create tons of referral work for us so that we don't have to spend tons of money on marketing constantly, this is what it takes, trying to make sure that you have the right client in the right seat in your business, making sure that they're coming and that you have them there, you can serve them. Their expectations are lined up, your expectations are lined up, and you can put some coal in the engine of that train and you can move it straight ahead. That's ultimately what we're targeting here. So listeners, I hope you got a lot from today. I hope you learned the top 5 red flags that you'll see in the sales cycle and what to do about them. And until next time, thanks for listening.